but good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Executive. I will now read out the emergency evacuation announcement. There are no planned fire drills, so if the alarm activates, please leave the building in an orderly fashion via your nearest fire exit. The two fire exits through the partition doors are currently not in use due to ongoing works. Therefore, the fire exits are through the main doors of the hall or the storeroom adjacent to the stage. The fire assembly point is the roundabout island in front of the main entrance to the building. Please do not delay your evacuation to collect any belongings. Please do not return to the building until given permission to do so by council staff. Please note that the meeting will be audio recorded. Please switch off mobile phones or turn them to silent, please. Toilets and hand washing facilities are available in the foyer area. Members, there is a need to use microphones during the meeting. When I invite you to speak, please wait until there is a microphone in front of you or before speaking, as microphones are needed for the hearing loop and for the audio recording. These are all switched on and ready for you to speak, so you do not need to adjust them. Please make sure that the microphone is directly in front of you before speaking. Voting will be done on a show of hands in line with the Constitution. I will ask for a show of hands for and then against recommendations, and will also ask for a show of hands for those wishing to abstain from voting. Good. Good evening, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Executive on Tuesday, the 11th of October, 2022. If I can turn to the first item on the agenda, which is apologies for absence. I've been made aware this afternoon that Councillor Danielle Belton is absent due to illness. Everyone else is here. Item 2, non-members attending. This is a regular standing item now, Councillor Wilson, but once again, you're very welcome to this meeting of the Executive. Thank you for giving up your time. And I don't see any other members or members of the public in the room tonight. Agenda item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of September. Members, are the minutes agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 4, to receive any declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, members? None being declared. Thank you. Item 5, questions on notice from councillors. There are none. So we move on then to item 6, and that's matters referred to the Executive and reports from other committees. There are 2 reports from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Stuart Wilson, the Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, will introduce both reports. And I think the first report is the One Team Transformation Programme, Strategic Partnership with Brentwood Borough Council.
Thank you,
Councillor
Chairman.
Wilson.
Just to give you the background where this highlight report came from, it was members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee just wanted a highlight report and update. So there was nothing really driving it other than just keeping an eye on what was going on. In discussion at our meeting and reviewing the report, we found that the programme is largely on track. There are some issues, but they've been identified, and I think members of my committee were content that they were being managed satisfactorily. Of particular interest to the members of my committee were there's been some issues with filling posts, and that's a risk that's been accepted. And from that, the real concern was potential cost escalation if we start to use lots of temporary staff or agency staff. But we're confident that that's being managed. So that's an overview of the report. I don't know if Mr. Hopton wants to add anything.
Thank you. I think only just to say that it's obviously a lot going on behind the scenes. Like I said, in terms of the roadmap, we are broadly where we want to be. in terms of achieving targets and milestones. And I think there's a lot of dry topics going on in terms of IT alignments, sort of policies and the like, where people are working sort of hard in the background to sort of bring to sort of fruition. I think you'll begin to see the benefits of that in the next couple of months. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Houghton. Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Any questions, Chair?
Any questions for Councillor Wilson? I was quite intrigued that at last week's overview and scrutiny, the Deputy Leader and I got away with it because we weren't invited to join Greg Campbell and be a supporting act in his report or to the committee, although we were sitting as members of the public that evening, so we heard the debate. So
just in case we were there.
just in case. So there we are. Just before we go to the recommendations, I would just like to make one or two observations. We have to bear in mind that, in the nicer sense, this isn't just about the overview and scrutiny report. This is about the executive looking at the report as well. And I would just like to make some observations. First of all, the Deputy Leader, Councillor Cheryl Rowe, and myself met Emily Yule this morning. We had a short meeting with her because of getting our diaries together, but that was nice. She joined as Strategic Director yesterday, and so we note that in 3.3, as well as also the point that Ian Winslet will be leaving his post as Strategic Director at the end of October due to health issues, and we're really sorry to see that happen, but quite understand the reasons. We warmly welcome the 6 directors who are set out, their appointments set out in 3.7, and we note the fact that there's 3 appointments still to be made, and it would be a little naive to think that, you know, everything would be in place 2 minutes after we put the structure together. But this is actually about going into the market and appointing the best people for demanding roles in this venture that we are in, which is being viewed by a lot of people within local government as a creative and innovative initiative. 3.14, it was requested by members that feedback from residents as to the impact of the partnership is regularly sought and reported upon. That point is there. I can't let 3.19 be overlooked without acknowledging, you know, this is about team building, but what a fantastic team building result when £12,000 is raised for charity. And I think it's just wonderful in terms of achieving team building and also making a significant contribution, £12,000. And further events organised. 4.3, interesting to note the anticipated ongoing savings are still expected, and then there's the various pre-scrutiny recommendations there. So that's my only comments on the report. They're the sort of highlights of the report, but I think we turn straight to the recommendations, members, if you're comfortable, Councillor Wilson, as they are set out there in item 11, 10.1. It's only a bit strange with the numbering. Shouldn't that be 11.1? I think that should be 11.1. Yeah. Just for the record. But if you're happy for us members to take those en bloc, I'll read them out. It is proposed that Executive resolves, 1, to investigate if existing staff can be upskilled to take on the outstanding roles, and to adopt an appropriate methodology to log and track issues that pose risks for the Council. Is that agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you. Right, we now turn then to the second report from Overview and Scrutiny, and that is item 6.2, the health check review of the asset delivery programme. Again, you're on stage, Councillor Wilson, but I think you're going to be ably supported by Councillor Webb over there and Matt Harwood-White. So you've got the supporting act for you on that item.
Thank you, Chair. Just to set the scene, really, it's quite unusual for someone who isn't the senior responsible owner to get sight of these reports. And so at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, I made it clear to members that they weren't there to second-guess the findings of the report because they didn't actually undertake the work. But we were there really to amplify the report. I think the report is clear by saying that undertaking an asset delivery programme is what we should be doing and that it's vision-led. I also said, as a professional project manager in my career, I've never seen a set of circumstances where the business requirement has changed so much, where inflation has come in so much, and really it's changed the whole environment that we're operating in. And again, I think the report is clear about that. It's saying these are things that couldn't have been foreseen. This has nothing to do with mismanagement or negligence. It's literally the way the world is now. So really, we were just really trying to amplify the recommendations in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Webb, do you wish to add anything at this point?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you, Councillor Wilson. It was good to attend ONS last week. The members there made some good points. In terms of the report itself, we did agree to the report. We commissioned it. I believe we were proactive in doing so. I believe it is a balanced report. It points out some of the excellent work that we've done, as well as making 5 key recommendations. Incidentally, this is the second health check that we've carried out. All the recommendations from the first report were implemented and they are listed in Appendix C of this report, and we can certainly be confident that we are following the correct procedure. Just a couple of positives to draw your attention to, if I may. Section 1 outlines that the development of the OBC for the ADP has been progressed in exemplary fashion. We followed correct procedure using exemplary project management principles. I think that's worth highlighting. And as Councillor Wilson has already mentioned, but I will also draw attention to it, in section 3 of the report, I believe it's page 9, it makes very clear that doing nothing is not an option, and many interviewees and stakeholders recognise this. The Council remains in a position where it has too much space while occupying an ageing portfolio of assets with leisure and community assets that remain financially unviable. That said, there were 5 recommendations in the report that we discussed in some depth at ONS last week that I have no issue with, particularly in terms of comments around the stakeholder engagement that was carried out. And it was, it was an interesting debate because actually when you read through the report, it lists an enormous amount of ways that we did actually as a council engage with the community. We went through several different routes. But unfortunately, at the time that we were doing that, we were living through a global pandemic. And actually, our messaging got lost amongst an awful lot of other government messaging. So maybe it's not that surprising that our residents didn't get the message as clearly as we would have liked because of the times that we were living through. And the other recommendation, just to highlight, is the second point in terms of the report speaks about recasting the original OBC, considering the changing future operating environment. And I do think it's worth just mentioning that in terms of we are living in extremely changing times, partly because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The council staff operating in a very different manner, a more agile manner, and that's a change that was not anticipated at the start of this programme. And the second change is the cost of building work has gone up significantly. A local business manager suggested that raw materials have now doubled in price. And obviously, as has been mentioned earlier this evening, we are working with Brentwood as well, and that's changing our working patterns. So yeah, I do support the need to recast the original OBC. We have been victims of some external factors which we could not control. So yeah, I think it's an excellent report and I wholeheartedly recommend it. I would like to make some changes, or to recommend some changes, if that's okay, to the actual recommendations that came from ONS. I have spoken with Councillor Wilson about this before the meeting. We recognise that although we do need to recast the vision, we don't need to go back. We don't want to go back to the start of the project, and we felt that better wording for recommendation 3 would be that the executive ensures that the programme continues to be vision-led and forward-thinking, regardless of whether they were part of the original outline business case. And actually, the second recommendation.
Sorry, Councillor Webb, just to be absolutely clear, so you're wishing to leave that recommendation in place, but delete the words that all options will be evaluated?
And replace them with forward-thinking.
Right.
Because that recognises the changes that we are now facing.
Right.
However, we do not want to go back to the start of the process again.
So to be absolutely precise, be evaluated, come out, but be forward-thinking.
That all options will be evaluated, will be removed, and forward-thinking will go in.
Right. And do you have a seconder for that change? Yeah, that's recommendation 3 on page 6.2.4.
Repeat that, please.
Sorry? I'm sure Councillor Webb will be delighted to repeat
Thank
it
you.
for you.
So the third recommendation will read that the executive ensures that the programme continues to be vision-led and forward-thinking, regardless of. Actually, we could probably remove the final paragraph, the final part of that sentence, actually, couldn't we, Stuart, if you're happy with that? So it would just read that the executive ensures that the programme continues to be vision-led and forward-thinking.
That simplifies it, doesn't it? And Councillor Ward.
Sorry, I can't quite hear what is actually being said. Just if I can repeat back what I think you heard and then correct me, please. Are you saying that the executive ensures that the programme continues to be vision-led and that all opinions, regardless of whether they were part of the original outline business case? Was it opinions, options,
No,
or is that being left
no,
out?
that's being left out.
Thank you.
What I'm saying is that the executive ensures that the programme continues to be vision-led and forward-thinking, full stop.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah. Take out that all options will be evaluated.
So you're just taking out everything that starts that all options will be evaluated regardless of whether they were part of the original outline business case.
No,
just
no,
stay in
no.
Oh, because that's what I'm hearing.
No, it's not what's being said. Councillor Webb, would you please repeat for the
That
third?
the executive ensures that the programme continues to be vision-led and forward-thinking.
Full stop.
Okay.
Right. And
The second recommendation, we need to recognise that the risk register has been presented to ONS previously, so we could just amend that to say that a risk register / issues log be presented to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on a regular basis, recognising the fact that they have already seen a copy of the risk register before.
so that a risk register issues log be presented to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on a regular basis. So those words added. Yeah? So those are the only...
And a final addition,
Right.
and this is because it was actually, I believe it was missed out on the paper when it was printed. As an executive, we need to note the report itself, and the wording that I would suggest for that is that the health check review of the asset delivery programme and the recommendations contained therein be noted.
Right, I'm just waiting for officers to note those. 4 recommendations. Right, hold those recommendations in your mind. I think, Councillor Spurring, you were happy to second those.
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you. Right. I just want to go back on 1 or 2 things. Before I do, Matt Harwood-White, do you wish to add anything?
Nothing else, thank you at this time, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you to you and your team for all the work going on behind the scenes to commission this work. I know fantastic amount of work on this and other things that your team do. First of all, I want to emphasise the fact that when that report was commissioned, there was all sorts of speculation within the wider community that it wouldn't be published, it wouldn't be open and transparent. It is published, it is open and transparent. There is no cover-ups going on here, and actually it was the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, quite rightly, that had sight of it first when their report was published a couple of weeks ago. So I want to dispel the myth that there is anything going on that isn't open and transparent. There's nothing in this asset delivery programme that is not open and open to scrutiny. The second thing that I want to make clear is the fact that the asset delivery programme, the reasons for carrying it out are as robust today as they were several years ago when the work started. We cannot continue to have surplus buildings in this district which are costly to maintain and where we are wasting council taxpayers' money. I accept that there is an emotional attachment to certain of our buildings, and I accept that we should be under scrutiny to make sure that we make best use of taxpayers' money. But at the same time, we have to remember our priorities that we publish on every single agenda to be financially sustainable, early intervention, and I would suggest actually we failed on that because what we're doing now we should have done quite a few years ago in terms of reviewing our assets, to maximise our assets and to enable communities. So when people pick off individual buildings and they think in their eyes that we should be preserving them in perpetuity, then I'm afraid that cannot happen. It wouldn't happen in any authority, and we as custodians of the 85,000 or so residents that we represent should not be supportive of that sort of wastage. In terms of the report itself, I think the recommendations are very balanced and very reasonable. I think there's lessons for us to learn, for me to learn, in terms of the way the engagement process was carried out and the consultation process was carried out. But then I think it's absolutely right, as Councillor Webb said, to acknowledge that we had a pandemic of the proportions none of us have ever seen before. I think we have to hold our hands up and accept that on reflection, with hindsight, we could and we should have done better. And I take my part of the responsibility for that. But it wasn't done with any malice or intent not to be straightforward in what we were doing. It's just one of those things with the benefit of hindsight you look at. But we did have the greatest pandemic and threat to life that our generation, have ever seen. The other thing is that we have circumstances have changed. There was obviously the influence of COVID. Coming out of that, there is a different way of the council now working, much more acceptance of hybrid working. There is the partnership with our colleagues in Brentwood, which has changed some of our working practices and will have influence moving forward. And certainly the impact on costs and the business case which we had a matter of only 2 or 3 years ago, frankly, we may as well tear that up and put it in the bin because it is no longer realistic when you look at the rate at which building costs are going up. So we have to rethink the whole strategy. And you know, there may be criticism that this administration has wasted some money. But the reality is, do you go on knowingly wasting money, or do you recognise that circumstances have changed to the extent that you need to reflect, pause, and look at the whole programme again? And that is what we are responsibly doing. But a lot of the money that has been spent is used on various reports that we've had, and it is not wasted. It is actually informing us. But I think this review of what we're doing, the health check, is very, very positive. So that's all I really wish to say. There may be some questions in the light of what I've said. Councillor Efty.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with you on the report that it's well balanced.
but the recommendations in the report could be a little bit more plain English. So you have to really look at them to understand and get the meaning, and that would be good. Also, where it recommends that we come back and review this in 12 months' time, we've actually got quite a few important decisions to make over the next few months, or next 6 months, so like stop-go decisions and stuff like that. So maybe it might be good to come back for review after the stop-go decisions are made.
I think colleagues on overview and scrutiny are always happy to look at these things.
Say that it would be an annual review, because it's looking to say, is the business requirement still there? But there's nothing to stop you doing it before.
Okay, so maybe that can go in. And again, I've got a signature on the report, doesn't say which officer.
Well, I think the point on review, it just needs to be built in, you know, the chairman of ONS is here, and it needs to be built into the work plan. I don't see the need for a formal recommendation
Okay,
on that, but
that's
it's
fine.
noted from this meeting. Sorry,
And who did the reports? It's just got a signature, not...
You.
It was Matt. Thanks, Matt.
Right.
Well done.
Right, lovely. Councillor Ward.
Thank you very much, Leader. I think the report tells a very good story, and I think that is important, that we've actually got a story that people can see annotated out properly to explain everything. And I think that's important. And the fact that it's come from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, they have worked with it and they brought that forward. I think that adds a lot of credence to a lot of the issues that have come up, and I think it's a real myth buster, in my opinion. I'd like to thank the Overview and Review Committee for actually looking and bringing this forward to us. Thank you.
No, I totally endorse that. A good piece of work. Right, any other comments? No? Okay, well, we will go to the recommendations officers, do you wish us to read those out again? Do you want to go through 1 to 4 now? Councillor Webb.
Yep, happy to do that, Chairman. So the first recommendation is that going forward with the ADP, consideration of the impact of our carbon footprint be given when buying in services and procuring goods.
Members, is that agreed?
The second recommendation is that a risk register / issues log be presented to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on a regular basis.
Members, is that agreed?
The third recommendation is that the Executive ensures that the programme continues to be vision-led and forward-thinking.
Members, is that agreed?
And then the fourth recommendation is that the health check review of the asset delivery programme and the recommendations contained therein be noted.
Members, is that noted? Thank you. Right, we turn then to item number 7 on the agenda tonight, which is a report on the cost of living update. It was only 2 weeks ago that we were sitting in this room listening to the initial report, but it's nice we did actually say we would have updates at every executive. So I hand over initially to Councillor Williams to guide us through the report.
Thank you, Chairman. The decision being recommended this evening is for members to review and note the current version of the joint cost of living action plan for Rochford and Brentwood as agreed at the Executive on the 27th of September this year. We have developed an action plan which provides a whole system approach to support residents, businesses and staff in responding to the cost of living issues and to enable individual and collective support through a suite of preventative and personalised measures. It must be remembered this action plan is a live document evolving on a daily basis and will be informed not only from any governmental changes but also a number of sources such as health, colleagues, housing, revenues and benefits department, Department for Work and Pensions, Citizen Advice Bureau and voluntary community and social enterprises organisations that are on the front line providing services to residents. I'd like to thank Tracy Lilly and her team for putting this report together in such a timely manner. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Tracy Lilly, do you wish to add any comments to that?
I'll be brief, Chair. It's just to say that one of the key factors, and I've mentioned this before, is that this is our response in terms of the cost of living crisis. It's not what we can do to respond to it. It's around our coordination efforts. And I'm really pleased to say that we've already set up the working group that will meet on the week commencing the 24th, so that will really drive it forward. So I'm hoping in future executives I'll be able to develop the dashboard that I'll bring back rather than the action plan. But we just have to be mindful that we will be working with voluntary sector organisations, so that it may be that data is not available on a monthly basis, but I'll develop that and bring it back to a future executive.
Thank you very much indeed, and tremendous thanks to you and your team for the work you've done in pulling this together. Any questions, members? Councillor Ward.
Thank you. Will this be going live on our website?
I think the website's got enough information on it because it's a good landing page and it gives people the places that they need to go. We're actually developing through the working group a comms plan as well. So the idea is that we're constantly going out there to the communities through whether it be the video ideas that we're doing, through newspapers, all of that kind of thing. So I'm conscious I don't want to bombard people with an action plan that might not be relevant to everybody. It's about getting the key messages out there, I think.
I think that's what I was aiming at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, the only point I would make is, can we just be aware when we're attaching an appendix that some of the, and I'm sure it's the same for Brentwood colleagues, but some of the Brentwood terminology, for example, PRED, is a little bit of a strange term for us here in Rochford, and I'm sure there's other bits of terminology that are a bit, so can we just be aware that when we are putting out reports that essentially cover, because it's the same report, we just are a little bit aware of that, because policy, resource and economic development, is that the...
That's correct, Chair.
Oh, I've not done too bad there. But, you know, some of these, it's just nice for us to recognise this terminology that we don't all share. Okay, no other questions? Okay, I think that appendix is really good. So if members agree, we'll turn to the decision being recommended at 1.1, and that is for members to review and note the current version of the Joint Cost of Living Action Plan for Rochford and Brentwood as agreed at the Executive on the 27th of September 2022. Members, is that noted? Noted. Thank you very much indeed. That actually concludes this meeting tonight at 20:01 this evening. So thank you very much indeed for your attendance, members and officers, and of course Councillor Wilson, who seems to be a standing visitor to this meeting. You're always very welcome. Thank you very much indeed.